All right, I'm on another creative walk. I don't go on these, but it seems like when I go on them, it's usually, more often than not, it's on a cloudy day or a rainy day like it is right now. And it's going to go ahead and we're going to talk. We're going to talk creativity. I'm going to teach you what we call the idea ecosystem. Okay. Now, I put this together years ago. I mean, it's going on almost 2001, 2000, right around then. Essentially, the best way I can put it was back in 2001. I was teaching for 2 universities. And that was before multimedia is as big as it is. In other words, I was teaching After Effects, Photoshop, Apple when it first came on the scene with like OS 9, OS 8. It was a big thing. So what I want to share with you is that the idea ecosystem, it's organic. When you're coming up with ideas, I mean, there's a lot of ways to come up with ideas nowadays. A lot of ways. And this is pretty organic, meaning you can do it very naturally. So the core concept of it is really easy, is that it literally it mimics, if you will. The best word I can give you is it mimics patterns in an actual ecosystem. And that's what's nice about it. So you can allow ideas to literally sprout, kind of like seeds. And that's, by the way, where it all starts. This could be for business domains, creative domains, YouTube domains. Really doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Technological, societal, ecological, inventive, whatever. That's the power of it. So the first stage of the idea ecosystem is literally to understand that your ideas start off as a seedling, kind of like these plants over here. They start off as like a seedling. So it begins with what we call a seed idea, right? It's something simple. It's raw. It can be pretty vague as well, because it starts off vague. And it's a process. It's all a big process. So what you're going to do, you would get yourself like a notebook, a book, a tablet, whatever tool you want to use. You need a collection tool. I call it a collection tool because you have to be able to collect exactly what's going on. You have to collect all this information. So you're going to pull random words, random objects, random pictures, magazine clippings, right? You're going to pull all these phrases, even phrases, you're going to pull them from your surroundings. Let's take a look around for a moment. There we go. You're going to pull it from your surroundings. Then the next step, once you start getting them all from the surroundings, you have all this collected raw stuff. I want you to think of this as like raw data, raw information. What you're going to do is start pairing them with a goal or a challenge. Because what you're doing is you're looking for connections. You're trying to find connections. So for example, if you're looking to invent something new, it's not the single idea. It's never a single idea. And that's what people don't get. They don't understand. They think that it's like, oh, but I just need that one idea. No. Ideation, as it can be understood, ideation, the ability to kind of get multiple ideas, is you need to go for multiple ideas. You need quantity first. It's an absolute must to gain quantity, gain the quantity of ideas. Because what you're doing is looking for conjunctions and overlaps. So you're going to look for ideas that overlap or relate or connect. You're trying to connect the dots. So that's what I mean by you pair them with a goal or a challenge. So if you're inventing something and it's for a purpose, you need to pair these ideas with this challenge, with this goal that you have. Very important. So an example, right, is like a leaf. A leaf could be something random. You found it off the ground, but it can give you thoughts about, fractals in reality. Or, for example, the resilience of an architectural structure, for example. So you could see, like within nature, that little leaf has all these veins in there, but it could give you some ideas for, let's say, structure. Because within the order is chaos, and within the chaos is order, right? And what we're doing is taking the chaos of everything and finding the order, putting them together, pairing them up, and it becomes a lot of fun. So the innovation is you really are building like a seed collection, a collection of all your seeded ideas. So you collect all your ideas, you get them all together, and they're going to be random, but they're going to start generating ideas. They're idea starters, They're all tailored to your domain. So if you have a particular domain, it could be a healthcare domain, sustainability domain, an education domain. That's okay. The go for quantity. The problem is we want to go for quality. So this is where people screw up. They fall into the judgment zone. They don't know the difference between judging and evaluating. So they'll go and they'll get these dozens of ideas and they'll judge them too hard, too fast, too soon, which is a major mistake. It's about discernment and evaluation. That's what it's about. It's the best I can tell you. So you don't want to start judging so fast, so early, so quickly. You don't want to do that. You need to have a level of evaluation and a level of discernment. That's how it works. So the next step is after you've collected all that, and now you have your goal, you have your, maybe it's a sustainability goal or an educational goal, something you're trying to invent. The next step is cross-pollination. Just like nature, is cross-pollination, right? And how the ideas work is you start to cross-pollinate. So you have the seedlings. The seedlings are your collections of data, collections of newspaper clippings, quotes, all different sorts of things. And you collect them. You can put them in a jar. You can put them in a folder on your computer. Put them in some form of container. It could be a digital container or a non-digital container. That's okay. And what you're going to start doing is we cross-pollinate. So this is where I encourage interactions between the ideas. We start to find the overlaps. This is where the overlaps comes in, step 2. You find the overlaps, you find the interactions between the various ideas that actually exist. That's the fun part. That's the absolute fun part. So how it works is okay, well, these ideas, they start to thrive when they interact with each other. You start to see connections. And I was born with a superpower ability, literally, I'm kidding when I say superpower, but I'm born with a natural gift to find connections where other people don't. And it's just my little superpower, it's my little essence of me and the voices of victory. And what you're going to do is combine these multiple ideas, especially if they're across domains. You're going to start to compare maybe the unrelated concepts to create innovation. That's what that's going to be. So you start comparing the ideas. You go for quantity first, and then we find the overlaps. We find all of the overlaps. So you start with the seedlings. The seedlings are your seed ideas. And then, of course, we start with the cross-pollination, which is we start to connect the dots. We start to connect, find the overlaps between the information that we've gathered and actually put together. So that's what's powerful about it. Then we're going to ask some questions. When you start to have these multiple ideas, what's going to happen is you're going to start looking at different domains. So you're going to have the domain of technology. You'll have the domain of healthcare. You'll have the domain of maybe mobile applications. Whatever the case may be. Let me go stop here for a hot second. It's getting hot. It's 80 something degrees, even though it's cloudy. And you start to pair ideas from those domains, like technology, like culture, ecology, and you're going to ask yourself the hot question. What if these two things merged together or swapped? You either swap them out or you somehow merge them and combine them. That's the beauty of it. Again, you want to suspend your judgment of any kind. If you have judgment of any kind or evaluation or discernment, what have you. In other words, what I'm basically trying to say in a nutshell is avoid judging too hard, because it's really going to stunt your growth. We're dealing with growth. You start with the seedling, you start with the cross-pollination. You ask yourself, what if these two things merged or swapped? All right, for example, combining like a smartphone with gardening. It's like totally two different ideas, because you want to create an app that maybe monitors plant health, maybe using some kind of technology, programming, machine learning language, whatever the case may be. And from there, you want to innovate. So this is where we start maybe doing some visual brainstorming a little bit. We're going to see where the ideas actually connect and create some hybrids. So I like to say good ideas can be generated off of 3 average ideas. And that's the overall arching principle I want to bring to the table. Is when you take 3 average ideas and you start to combine them, you can get a stellar idea. Some people are usually aiming for novelty. They want it to be new. They want it to be fresh, right? And I can assure you, if you go for quantity and start finding connections, you'll find fresh. People are pushing for novelty. They want novelty now. When they're trying to find a good idea, they press for novelty too fast, too soon. And quite honestly, that stunts the whole ecosystem growth. This form of ideation is all about growing it from a seedling idea, cross-pollinating it, and then starting to cultivate it more. So another example, or another way to look at this, let me pause here for a moment, is that we are dealing with different domains. So think of it this way, like an environmental shift, if you will. Right? So here we have our seedling, and then we have our cross-pollination. Now we have our environment for our plant. Right? What's the environment in this case? Well, change the context across domains. And how it works is you can start moving those ideas into different environments or different domains to see how they adapt, to see how they evolve. A lot of app developers have done this. They've taken certain apps, move it into a domain in order to solve a problem. And we see this commonly, like Uber would be an example. Uber or other types of applications. I'm just going to pass through these leaves here. There we go. So what you're going to do is you're going to test your ideas. You can take a look at your ideas that you have from a societal, technological, ecological, cultural, whatever the case may be. You're going to take those ideas and you start to have a good, solid look at them, because that's what it's all about. It's all about the environmental shift. We're going to move those ideas into a different environment. And guess what? When you move it into those different environments, you start to see how your current ideas will overlap into another idea, like into a completely different idea. All right, so what you do, just to recap the whole system, because this system does work, all right, is you start off with I'm going to summarize everything. You start off with the idea, the seedlings. All right, I want you to think of your seedlings as inputs. They're ideas that input into a collective pool of creativity. That's how I want you to look at them. Like you're inputting these multitude of ideas. Go for quantity. Use discernment and evaluation. Avoid judging. I would say suspend it towards the very end. And don't fall into the trap too much of, oh, it's got to be novel. If you aim for the overlaps and you find the different domains, you will eventually get novel. Then the cross-pollination, you start pairing your ideas up. You start pairing them to your goals, pairing them to your purpose. And of course, pairing those ideas towards your domains, healthcare, education, blah, blah, blah. And that's the whole fun part. So you're going to build your like seed jar, your little jar of ideas that are collected. You could use a folder. Remember, you could use a folder. You could use a folder on your computer, a real jar, a real life folder, anything that's going to act as a container for the multitude of ideas. Could be pictures, could be quotes, could be images. You start combining them. With the cross-pollination, you have to encourage the interactions between these multiple ideas, these different ideas that actually exist. Very important. So you ask that question, like, what if these two things, what if they merged and swapped? And then we start pairing those ideas from the domains like technology and ecology. Like if taking technology and ecology and start pairing those two together. And that's how the cross-pollination works, right? The environmental shift, since your idea is like a plant, it is literally like a plant. And what you're going to do is understand that there's an environmental shift. So, for example, and I use that as kind of an idea that you move ideas into different environments. You move the idea into the education environment. You move the idea into the healthcare environment, the different domains that actually exist, right? They're societal, technological, ecological, whatever the case may be. It's all there. The material sciences. Now, the innovation with this is what I saved the best for last. The innovation is you're going to build this digital interactive ecosystem map, and it's going to help you track the direction of where you're going to go, what you're going to do. Now, why this actually works overall, why it actually functions the way that it does is real simple. It's an organic process. So it mimics the natural ecosystem. So making idea generation, it makes it intuitive, easy to adapt, right? It has cross-domain versatility. You start to blend the creativity and technology. And most of all, it's universally applicable. So it applies to all different things. Now, what's wonderful about all this is that my background in graphic arts, web design, multimedia, video editing, teaching for the universities going back all the way to 2001. I've used this with my students, that we start off with the seedling, right? We cross-pollinate. And after the cross-pollination, we start playing with different environments. And my power is to connect the dots where other people may not see the dots. Connect them fast. I connect them really super fast. But what happens when you connect these dots is you start to get some incredible ideas because the ideation goes off the quantity. It's all about quantity. Go for quantity and then discover the quality. Most people have it in reverse. Because of their judgment, they hit the quality first. They push themselves too hard for quality first. They don't embrace the process. They don't let go of stress. Stress is destructive, absolutely destructive to the creative process. It's absolutely destructive. Any type of stress. That's why graphic artists, if they don't learn to let go of the stress or find some mechanisms or you know, some coping mechanisms, then what happens is their work, you know, just like any other human being, their work can actually see like a negative spike, right? Can start seeing a negative aspect. There is a law of diminishing returns.